Hey folks, I'm Todd Jones. I'm the host of the podcast Pressbox Access. Check out this clip from my conversation with Vito Stellino. Vito recalls covering the gambling scandal involving star players Paul Hornung and Alex Karras.
When you started in 63, before you went into the Army for a couple of years and came back in 66, in 63, you were part of the biggest story of the NFL that year, the suspension of Alex Karras and Paul Hornung for gambling, and you were working in Detroit, right?
Yeah, as I say, I don't know if I was just lucky or I just happened to be often in the right place at the right time, and so the NFL called us to alert us that they would make the announcement like at say 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I forget the exact time. So I drove out to Karras's house, which, you know the kind of houses that players live in now. This was a block of houses, all the same, very middle class, maybe even lower middle class neighborhood. And of course, there were no
like a row house, like a row house.
Well, no, they were separate houses. They weren't row houses, but they were very, very modest houses. And so then I had no cell phone. So then I had to go in a parking lot and call the office to find out what happened, before I actually arrived at the house, because I didn't know what to say. Well, I got, they told me he's suspended, so I drive to the house and ring the doorbell. And I still remember his wife came to the door wearing a dress. In those days, women wore dresses even at home. And this little girl was like holding the hem of her dress, and she was crying. And he had already left for the stadium. So then I had to get back in my car, drive down to the stadium. And I remember Karras, he was really furious, although he did a TV interview, which was one of the most ill-advised things you can imagine, where he virtually said he had gambled, but he'd gamble small amounts, didn't think it was a big deal. And,
just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's, anyway, he was so bitter. I'll still remember the quote. He said, I can go back to, I think it was in Gary, Indiana, and work in the steel mills for all the steel I can eat. Oh,
wow.
He was very upset. But
Hornung was at the end of his career, but Karras was like the defensive player in the league that time, right?
Well, no, he was still 62 season. He was still at the top of his game. Right. No, I mean, it was like the best offensive player and the best defensive player in the league were being suspended. Now you can argue maybe he wasn't the best offensive player. I'd say one of the best, because obviously Jim Brown was in the league at the time. But Karras, we were focused on Karras all along because he'd gone on TV. The Hornung thing came out of nowhere. We had no idea that he was even being investigated or anything like that. And in fact, we found out later that Roselle called Lombardi to come to New York, and he told him, "Hey, here's the evidence." And Lombardi said, "Hey, you have no choice," And so so that was. That was kind of like the first major national story that I was involved in.